Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
Happy freaking Memorial Day. I mean, not so happy for me because as I was discussing with my lovely guest here, I have COVID for the second damn time. But you know what? It doesn't slow me down. However, if I do like zone off, it's not because I'm drunk. It's probably because the vid is hitting my brain. But welcome to the drink.
Still doing this.
Of course, yeah, I wasn't canceling on you. Your
you.
story's great. I had to have you on.
Thank you.
So this is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Valencius, and I have the pleasure of having with me Nita Marie. Now,
Yay.
Nita, you got a lot going on here. You're a women's empowerment coach. You're also an author, and your book is called The Sacred Butterfly: How I Unveiled My Authentic Self Through Faith and Sex, and that just came out in the beginning of February. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
What did you do for the holiday? Anything fun?
Well, we went to like a little festival here, and then we went up to my property, which is something else I have going on, which is my animal sanctuary up in Woodland Park, Colorado. And so we were up there hanging out with some of our animals, did a little barbecue. So that was really fun.
That's all. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that because I'm a big animal guy. But
yes,
let's get into like your background story, and you could get in as in depth as you like.
Okay.
But you know, when you're all online, right? You know, you're very much online, and I'm sure you have a lot of fans and you have a lot of people that are interested in your work. A lot of times they don't really know how you got there and who you really are, right? And I always like to start this way because I feel like you have a really unique story with your rags to riches, you know, type of stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, like I said, I don't want you to go crazy and ruin your book because I'm sure I do. Anyone that I have on the show, I promise you I'll buy your book because,
thanks.
you know, one, you got to support people, the creators. I love authors as well. But at the same time, you have a pretty unique story. So tell me a little bit about what got you to where you are today.
Thanks. Well, as far as why I started modeling, I went through a divorce about 6 years ago. Actually close to 7 years ago. And I was really in one of those relationships that I kind of call asexual because we weren't having sex. And when I got out of the marriage, I really wanted to get back in touch with my sexuality, back in touch with my body, really feel more empowered just physically and emotionally. And so I started modeling again, which is something I did in college and I did very well. And so I started modeling again just for my own self. But then as I started doing it, I really started to gain a lot of interest and a lot of followers on Facebook. So I really just started on Facebook without doing anything nude or anything. But then as I started to grow, I started to get some of the haters on Facebook because I was really just posting on my regular Facebook. Like I wasn't thinking it was going to get as big as it got, you know. So I started posting on my personal Facebook some of my, boudoir photos. And I went from being like very conservative on Facebook to all of a sudden posting pictures of myself in lingerie. So you can imagine people being a little shocked. But I was really just like in this self-discovery mode because anyone who's ever gone through a divorce, I think you can probably relate that there's something I call the divorce crazies, where you do like all this stuff that you never were doing when you were married that maybe you always wanted to do, but you just never did, right? And so that's kind of what I did. And So once I started to get a little bit of hate, I then was like, okay, maybe I should separate it. So now I'm just gonna have just a page just for my modeling. So once I started to do that, I started getting tons of fans, and I thought, well, I'm doing this for free, and I'm a single mom, and I kind of need some money because at this point I
Don't
had
we
like,
all?
yeah,
Don't we
right,
all?
kind of need some money, and I was doing less with my other job because I wasn't like as emotionally invested at the point of going through my divorce. So I decided to start OnlyFans. But, I was fortunate enough to start it right before the big COVID boom. You're talking about COVID. Like, that
Yeah.
was like kind of what started OnlyFans was COVID.
The
Because,
gold rush. It's the
it
gold
was.
rush
It's
of
like the gold
OnlyFans.
rush of OnlyFans. So people were on OnlyFans, but they didn't really know about OnlyFans until COVID. I was fortunate enough to have started my modeling, had a whole bunch of content, had, a social media following, had a lot of things in place. So when COVID happened, which was about 6 months after I started, um, I was able to be a part of like that COVID boom. So then that really catapulted me to make, the amount of money that I'm making now. So that was just a little bit about me. So it's been so May is actually my 5 year anniversary on OnlyFans.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks. It's exciting. So I'm still here.
Yeah, my wifey, she did OnlyFans. She has her OnlyFans up, and
That's awesome.
with her thing, what she was doing is, a lot of her content she was posting for free, just like you on Instagram and
Right.
things like that. So she decided, oh well, you know what, I'll also do that. I'll take advantage of, kind of putting it into an OnlyFans area, and she had some pretty
Yeah.
cool stuff, where she was having like a free chat day, where she would open it up where people could chat with her and stuff. It was interesting.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So,
Awesome.
I always tell people, man, you gotta shake what your mama gave you, and you gotta do what you gotta do, especially in this world. If
Yeah.
I was a woman and I could do it, my ass would be doing it. Now I know there's plenty of guys, on there, but that's,
It's
I'm too
different.
much of
Yeah.
a, yeah, it's a little different. I'm a chubby dude, I don't even want to see myself in the mirror, let alone, having someone pay me to do it.
That's so funny.
You gotta love it. But so, what has your experience been over the past 5 years with OnlyFans? Have you seen any? I know just from experience, the wifey, we were talking about this before we were getting on, and one of her questions to you was like, "What's one of the crazier things that you've gotten a request for?" Because someone I think asked her to, they would buy pictures of her poop
Oh, I know.
or
That's
something
so
something
gross.
crazy, and it's like, she's like, I am not doing that.
No.
But
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, there are some crazy things for sure. But
well, hold on, and I
some
don't want to judge because
okay.
everyone's into their own thing, right? I mean, what's crazy to me is someone else's kink, right? So like, I'm not trying to judge anybody. The poop thing's weird. I don't like poop, let alone having it on me. That freaks me out a little bit. Plus, too, from a sanitary thing, it's
It's
just weird.
gross. Yeah.
But there's guys, and they, the feet thing I don't get, because I mean, I'm not a feet guy myself, but what's some of the crazier things you've had people ask you to do?
Yeah. Well, the most recent thing that I think is kind of weird, but I'm not judging it. I just think it's a little out of the box, is when guys have a fetish of being eaten.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Explain. Explain.
So they have this fetish of like me actually starting to eat their limbs and starting to eat them alive. So I have to pretend like I'm actually like eating part of them and talking about how yummy it is.
Wow. I was not expecting you to say that. I thought the poop thing in my head, I'm like, I don't know if she's going to top that. That tops it. That's some interesting shit. I actually interviewed a guy. He was anonymous. And his kink, he was big into the giant fetish.
Well, see, it's
Where
similar to that. So it kind of goes in the same thing, the giantess thing, where it's
Yeah.
usually the giantess eats the little man. Like that's and then I just got a request for a guy to eat his wife. So like he wanted me to eat his wife and pretend that like I had eaten her wife and like show my belly nice and full with his wife.
Wow.
I'm like surprised with where these things come from. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing until I started getting requests for it. And there's some things that are against like terms of service with OnlyFans, but those are not. But like the pee and the poop stuff is against terms of service, so they have to go to a different website for that.
Interesting. I didn't know the pee and poop thing was not okay on OnlyFans.
Yeah, it's actually against terms of service. Like we can't do any of that on actual OnlyFans. We can't.
Oh, cheers! By the way, I don't know if you're drinking. I didn't
I'm
ask.
drinking Jimmy John's.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take
Cheers.
it.
Okay. So yeah, they also don't even really allow like bodily fluids. Like it's okay for a guy to come, but it's not okay for a girl to like squirt. Like they sometimes
What?
will flag that. Yeah, it's weird. So it's awkward that they don't allow any bodily fluids from like women, but then they'll allow like the come from men.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's weird because you would think, I mean, all right, if we had to put a number on it, I mean, I'm sure I could probably Google it. I mean, all of their highest earning people out of the top 10, you'd imagine 60 to 70% are women, right? I can't
Well,
imagine
yeah,
there
of
being
course,
more than
yeah.
3 or 4 guys in the top
No.
10.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's 1 or 2 at least because there's
Maybe.
definitely women, I'm sure, right? But
Yeah.
it's a woman dominated platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's weird to me, but you know what? I mean, that's just kind of how I think politics in general is, right? So
Yeah.
like I work in insurance,
Yeah.
and more specifically Medicare. So I deal with older people, and look, older people like to fuck, man. It's like older people still throw it down. So like,
Oh my God.
what's typically covered on insurance plans is stuff to get a guy hard, right? So your
Right.
Viagra, your whatever I always forget what the generic form of it is, but that's covered. But for the longest time, obviously as a woman, as you get older in your 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
you don't generate the wetness down
Right.
there that you
Right.
would typically need. So there's actually there's creams for women that will help you with that, and almost no plans cover it. And if they
Wow.
do, it's like tier 3 or tier 4. It's like a higher tier drug, and it's like
Right.
that's kind of fucked up, man.
That is. That's totally messed up.
But this is the world we
Yeah.
live in, right? It's kind of a sexist world, which is it's almost a male dominated world. But behind every strong man is an even stronger woman. I say that all the time,
Yeah.
but that's just honestly like look at all the presidents, look at all this stuff. Like there's always going to be that woman in the background, and I think it's gotten better. We've gotten a lot better as,
Well,
as
and
the
honestly,
society has changed.
I feel like OnlyFans is actually changing it for the better for women. Even though there's going to be plenty of women that say, oh, you're just putting us back in time because you're sexualizing yourself for money. I totally get that, right? But what's the number one thing that's going to empower women is it's having money. Like that is what is really going to empower women, because if you have money, you can make different choices for your kids. You can, decide what schools they go to. You can be in different neighborhoods. You can choose not to be with like abusive husbands. Like there's so many things that having money for women changes. That's what I focus on, even though like the vehicle could be seen as us kind of not respecting ourselves. In my mind, I'm like, you know what? It's just money. Like it's just a vehicle to empower women financially.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I also think it's a good thing because, your kinks, your things like that. I think it's better to have an outlet too for some people,
Yes.
and at the same time, it's also more natural look. I don't know, how it works, but I know a lot of the top creators on OnlyFans, they outsource their reach, right? Where it's like these guys are sending the messages, but they're not the ones responding, right? I mean, that's a known thing. But I do think it's nice when you have people that do run their own account and they're
Yeah.
talking to these people. It helps, I think, the men on that side where they're developing somewhat of of a relationship with what they're sexualized to, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like it's better than
Yeah.
just going on Pornhub and just going down the rabbit hole of jerking off to random shit and you get your fix and you're done. But you do get a bit of I think a more of a personal experience, which for some people that's all they want is
Yeah.
someone to talk to them. And
the whole reason I started really OnlyFans is so that I can build a relationship with my fans, and I always told people when I would get judged for it, I would say, like, this is almost like I am providing a service for these guys. There's a lot of guys that just want someone to talk to, that are lonely, that are not with anyone for multiple reasons, and they need someone to talk to. Like,
yeah,
they
or
huh?
their religion
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where it's frowned upon to for stuff like that. And look, I always tell people, if I could do it, I would. And I think anyone, like if you're listening to this and you're a female or you're male, whatever, and you're on the fence about it or you're thinking about it, or maybe you dipped your toe, just do it, man. This is not a judge-free zone here, okay?
Yeah.
Especially if you can make some money,
Yeah.
You only live once, fuck it. And obviously for you, seems like you took the reins after your divorce, right? And is that what spurned your book? Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah.
How did it come up? What type of topics do you discuss? I know a lot of what you embody is empowering women. So, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, because I was in a marriage for so long that wasn't really that healthy sexually, it was kind of one of those things that we didn't have sex for a long time, but then before that, I was kind of sexualized, if that makes sense, in the marriage. So, like, I wasn't, like, who I wasn't really valued. It was just, I was pretty, of course, and had, nice body, whatever. I think he really wanted more of a trophy wife than really falling in love with who I was. So,
yeah,
once I started just like really getting in tune with my own body and my own sexuality and what I liked, I started to get in tune with like actually who I was, like as a person. Because I think so many times as women, we're not really taught to embrace like who we are. We're taught to look a certain way. We're taught to, have a certain type of body. Like if you have big boobs, you're going to get more attention, quote unquote. If you're blonde and, you're tan, you're going to get more attention, or you're going to be, more valued. And so, like, in general, women aren't really taught to, like, really love who they are. And so, for me, I learned that by getting more in touch with my sexuality. And the only reason I was able to get more in touch with my sexuality was because of OnlyFans. I don't think I would have done all the things that I did if I didn't actually really need money. I really needed money. Like, I was like broke. I had like $20 in my bank account. I'm like, crap, I got to do something because otherwise, I'm not going to make it. And, when you're 40 years old, you don't want to be asking your parents for money. And I was, and I was a single mom. I didn't want to have to put my kids in daycare. I didn't, have another job that was going to give me as much money as OnlyFans. So I was really kind of forced to do some of the things that I don't think I would have done otherwise. But because I did it, I really figured out, like, what do I like sexually? Like, a lot of women never even give themselves a chance to be with another woman, like, or to have an orgy, or to have a threesome, or, to even certain things that you're doing to masturbate. Like, what are things that you like? A lot of women never even explore that, Well,
it's taboo, right? I mean, it's, for me, I always think of the vagina kind of like Pandora's box. Like, It's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. The vagina is the best thing on the planet. Dicks
Yeah.
are abrasive. I always say that.
Yeah.
I like dicks just scare me. Okay, I could
They
never be
scare
gay.
a lot of
like,
women too.
yeah. Shout out to my gay guys. You know, I love gay guys, but seriously, I couldn't do it.
Scary.
It would scare me.
Yeah.
It would scare me too much. But you know, I think with empowerment and all the things you're talking about, it looks different for everybody too. It's not like one size fit all. And
Yeah.
I think women have been so conditioned that it's one size fit all to a certain degree. And the people that I've talked to, that I've had on the podcast, that have explored their sexuality, it's just a different experience for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Once they
Yeah.
know what they want and what they're looking for and what they like.
Yeah.
And that's different for everybody. Everybody likes
And a
different
lot
shit.
of times it's like a fantasy until it actually happens. Then when it happens, it's like, oh, actually, I don't really like that. Like, I thought I liked that, but I don't actually really like that. And so I think that I don't think I would have pushed the envelope as much as I did sexually if it wasn't because I was doing it for my work, you know? And then once I started doing it, I realized what I liked and what I didn't like.
Yeah, I mean it's like, you know, what's the, it's like the age old thing of anal, right? We actually had a set of friends where it was at his birthday every year. It was the only time that they would do anal, but that was like their thing as a couple.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And,
That's so funny. Yeah.
I
bet
thought
he's happy.
it was funny,
Yeah.
you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, I did anal with my ex, and I mean, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like it's something you have to like work into. You know, it's not something you can just be like, all right, let's do it. It's like, all right, well, you know, here's the pinky. And then, you know, like it's almost like you got to step into it, especially
Yeah.
for someone that's never done it before.
Yeah.
But you also have to be prepared for things too. I mean, you know, like if you get a little bit of poop there, it's shit you're not going to think of.
I know.
I mean, right? I mean, but it can happen. So like,
Yeah.
porn, I think, to a certain degree, they don't show it.
No,
It can really happen to a certain degree either, right?
Right. And that's why I say, like, that's why for some guys, you know, you may want to just keep it as a fantasy. Like, like don't,
Don't
ruin
ruin
the
it.
fantasy by actually doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because another thing that a lot of guys would be like is like, oh, like my fantasy is to be in the middle of, you know, 5 women, you know, and just be like kind of, you know, being seduced by 5 women. But then a lot of times when a guy actually gets in that situation, they totally like freeze and they just get intimidated because they're like, oh my God, I'm with 5 women. And then they get like all self-conscious and then they might not feel like they could actually perform. And then it turns into this whole thing psychologically that they're not even aware of when it's a fantasy, you know?
Yeah, one is enough for me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't know if personally, like, I'm sure in my head, I'm like, oh, that would be great to have a threesome, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle it. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. In my head, I'm like, yeah, it'd be great. But you think about it, you're like, I don't know if I could handle something like that. I would hope
Like
I would be able to.
emotionally or physically?
I'd say both.
Yeah.
You know, but we've also, you know, me and the wife, we've been together for a long time, so we both know, you know,
Each other.
how to get
yeah.
each other off. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
It doesn't need to be like an hour-long thing. It could be if you want it to be, but
Yeah.
we both know our spots, and that's just kind of is what it is. It doesn't mean it's any less fun. You know, I mean, it's still awesome. Totally. But it's like, I don't know. You know, I think that those certain things, like when you're a guy, it's like, yeah, having a threesome, anal, some of those things, and it's like until you actually put yourself in that situation, you're like, oh, this isn't what I imagined it would be. You know?
Yeah. Well, and then also you don't realize the jealousy that can go with it. So, like for example, you know, my husband and I, we've been together for like 6 years now, but we
Congrats.
Thank you. So, we were kind of exploring different things, and because I'd done a lot of scenes with women, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna let you do a scene with another woman. Like this was someone that I like, and you know, she's a friend of mine, but she's also a content creator, so I totally trust her, you know. And he's like, well, are you sure you're going to be okay with this? He's like, are you sure you're not going to get jealous? And here I am like, oh no, I'm not going to get jealous. Like, I'm going to be fine. It's going to be great. Like, maybe
Yeah.
we can really start doing content together. I'm like so excited, blah, blah. And then when he did it, it wasn't even like a full scene. Like, he didn't even get like super excited about it, right? Like, he didn't even go through like all the way. But it was just what he did do. I immediately started going to all these stories in my head. I was like, well, I don't even want you hanging out with her afterwards. Like, I don't want you spending time with her. Like, you better be leaving right away. Like, I just started coming up with all these things. I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, this is obviously jealousy. And I was someone that I didn't think would be jealous at all, because I understand how this business works. Like, you go in and you do a scene and you're done, right? Like, you're not having any feelings really for anybody. But I didn't realize that I would get jealous, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I think happens when you're trying different things, is like with that threesome, you don't know if you'd be getting jealous because maybe your wife is getting into whoever else you have, whether or not it's a girl or a guy.
Yeah, I'm not a jealous person, but I don't think I would be okay with it.
See?
I don't think so. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know unless it happened, you know?
Right.
But a lot of my guy friends would always be like, hey, like, kudos to you. I wouldn't be able to do it. And I would always go, what are you talking about? And it's like, because she's modeled since I've known her. She's always done it, you know?
Yeah.
And I knew that going into it. And, she's a Sagittarius, so I don't control her. She does whatever the fuck she wants. I'm just kind of here for the ride. You kind of learn that through the years. And, I've always just kind of been one of those people where I try, there's been points where I've had spouts of jealousy, but I think that's just a human reaction to certain things.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been, you do what you want. You're your own person. I'm not going to try to control you in any way. If you want to do that, go for it. If you want to do that, go for it. And I think, that's only made us, kind of stronger as a couple, because, a lot of her other boyfriends or people she was with would try to control her to a certain degree. But it's weird because my friends are always like, I don't know how you do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you don't know how I'm dealing with it. Like, it's her life, like if she wants to do it, like where do I fit in? Now, if it's like, if she was doing like, maybe full on porn, and then, I tried to change it, or I wasn't okay with it, but it's like I knew going in what she did. And I think a lot of times people aren't ready for it mentally,
And I do feel like there's different levels of what people are okay with. So there's some people that would not be okay with someone even posting sexy pictures on Instagram, right? Like, they wouldn't be okay with like cleavage or anything like that on Instagram. Then there's some guys that wouldn't be okay with, having an OnlyFans page and doing, nudity and doing, masturbation videos. And then there would be some guys that are not okay with, that, like, would not be okay with me doing a video with a woman. There's some guys that would be okay with me doing a video with a woman, but not doing a video with a guy, right? Like,
yeah.
Did I freeze? I don't know.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. I'm like frozen on my screen, but if you can see me, I guess that doesn't matter.
So a lot of times when this records, it records way better than what it's showing you.
Okay.
On my screen, you're good though.
Okay, as long as you can see me, that doesn't matter. Okay.
You are fucking golden.
Oh, thank you. So that's what I would think is like the difference is just that different guys are okay with different things, and couples, not just guys, but couples themselves, and that's something I've had to work on with my husband too, is like, what are we okay with? And, I am actually a lot more open sexually than he is. And so like, I've had to kind of amend some of the things that I was comfortable with just for his feelings. Right. And, I've been willing to do that, and we might then, change it again. So it's like, it changes all the time, and it's just a matter of like riding the wave of like what you're both comfortable with at the time.
Yeah, I think I fit a lot of those. Like, I could probably deal with a lot of that. The other guy thing, I don't think I could never deal. I wouldn't be okay with that. I couldn't do it.
You couldn't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I already know in my head. Nope, not gonna
No,
not gonna be cool.
not gonna happen that. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the stigmas behind women and their sexuality. And obviously whether you're older or younger, there's stigmas there.
Yeah.
How does that impact them throughout their life?
Well, I feel like the hard thing for women is that it's like normalized that a guy is going to just naturally like jack off. Like, they just are like, okay, teenage boy, he's going to do that. You just have to accept it, whatever. But then if a girl is doing it, like there's something wrong with her, like then she's like this slut or is this like, addicted to sex or something,
Yeah, yeah.
Just like that idea of like, if a woman's doing it, it's gross, it's dirty, there's something wrong with her. But if a guy's doing it, it's just normal. And we just know that a guy's going to do it, I just think that's part of it is that. But then
Which is fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
Fucked up.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But then it's also part of what the woman actually being comfortable with it, because there's a lot of women that like, I know it's going to sound kind of funny, but like never even touch their vagina. Like they're not like, they're like disassociated from that part of their body. You know what I mean?
That blows my fucking mind because I know as a guy, it's like I still remember the first time I masturbated. Like I didn't even know what the fuck I was doing. I'm like, oh, this is great. It's like, and I think as a guy, every guy listening to this is like, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. It's like, but like, I understand that. That makes sense. But it's still fucking wild.
I was sitting one time at a nail salon and I was watching Dr. Oz. So Dr. Oz was talking about how when a woman has a consistent orgasm weekly, that she will age less. So like orgasms basically were the key to anti-aging. And one of the nail techs, she's like, Asian, she's in her 50s, maybe 40s. She's like, well, I've never had an orgasm. Yeah. Wow. But you would be surprised. There are so many women that have never had an actual orgasm.
That, look, here's my thing. The wifey goes first every time. That's how it works. Because I'm pretty straightforward. It's a straightforward thing.
Yeah.
And I said this before on my podcast. I interviewed an awesome lady, Ruan Willow. She kind of writes adult books and things like that.
Yeah.
And I said it's the one thing that I've learned in life. You get the girl to go first, then you can kind of go at your own pace. If you want to go in 30, go for it. If you don't, you could get. But most of the time, it's a solid minuter and you're good. But if you're listening to this, you fucking get the girl to go first.
Yes.
You'll have you will stay together for a very long time.
Yes,
if you just are a pumper, you go in and you're done. You're fucked, man.
Yeah,
you got to take care of the woman.
And I'm glad you're saying that because I don't think a lot of guys really even think about that. I think that they think that if they're, getting off on a woman, that it's actually fully pleasurable for a woman. But it's not. Like, a lot of women cannot have an orgasm, first of all, in like 5 minutes, like guys can. It's like 20 minutes of buildup, right? And a lot of guys don't want to take that time. They're not wanting to actually, like, get the girl ready to even have an orgasm because they're wanting just to do their own thing. But that's why a lot of women don't. And that's why a lot of women aren't happy sexually because they're not, having that.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Because it does make sense because I've had so many friends that's their sex life, right? Is, their husband having sex with them, but not like having sex like almost to them, not with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's more of a chore.
Yeah.
It's not like
And then you wonder why women aren't having sex. And that's why they're wondering why, like, they're always turning the guy down, right? Because if it was just always about my husband, I would definitely be turning him down a lot more than I am. You know what I mean? Like, if it's always about him, like, what's in it for me,
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up and you see a lot of the, if you're a guy and you're watching porn, or you're a girl and you're watching porn, you really only ever, a lot of it, like a standard thing, right? You're only really seeing the guy go. The girl is not like you kind of are, but it's like, it's not the end scene. Like, there's not too many, unless you're watching lesbian porn, right? Most of the time, if it's a guy-girl porn, it ends with the guy going. It doesn't, like, the girl's kind of going through a while, but that's not what they're focused on. It's always the guy.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a problem probably in the
men
industry.
are what. Yeah, that's because they know the men are mostly the people watching it, right? They're like,
True.
well, we're going to gear this towards men because the men are like who's watching it the most. But I sure that's kind of changed over the years, though. Like, it definitely is changing. Like, women's sexuality is definitely becoming more of a thing as we talk about it, and that's why I think OnlyFans is more, accepted, because it's like, I don't know, like, it's taken 3 or 4 years for it to become more normalized, but it's not as big of a deal for me to say I'm an OnlyFans model now as it was even just like 3 years ago.
It's true. It's true. And, I think the sex work trade, or, whatever you want to classify it as, has always been really kind of looked down on, I think, up until pretty recently. I think the OnlyFans boom during COVID really did have a huge impact on a lot of the views.
It did on it being more accepted. I will say there's still a lot of hate with it because there's going to be a lot of resentment, like, on the male side too, for all these women making so much money. So, like, even, you know what I mean? So even
That's
though
wild.
it's like been good for women, I think there is some resentment to men that are like, how is she making all this money? And I'm like going to my regular job that I hate every day, and here she is like making thousands and thousands of dollars. So there's actually like a whole anti OnlyFans movement out there from men that don't want to keep giving all these women their money, So there's like that, but then there's also women too that are resentful of it because they're trying to, make money a different way. I think that people just have a perspective that being an OnlyFans model is easy. I think that's the thing that is like really the hard thing against us right now, is that people think, well, if I showed my boobs online, I'd be making thousands of dollars too, But it's not like that. There's so many beautiful women on OnlyFans that are not making very much money at all. And it's just because they're not marketing it the way they're supposed to market it, and they don't have the work ethic to do it 8 to 10 hours a day. You know what I mean? So it's like you're not just flashing boobs online and making, $1,000 a day.
Yeah, I mean, content creation just in general is not as simple as a lot of, like, when I started this podcast, I was streaming video games.
Yeah.
And I wasn't making much, but I was making like $150 a month just streaming video games. And I mean, I'm a nerd, so playing games is like my stress reliever. So, like, it's just something I was doing, and I was okay at it. And I think it's kind of the same avenue, and I can really agree, because you have to always be on when you're doing your content. And I was talking to the wife, and she's like, "Are you sure you're going to be able to do this episode today?" And I was like, "I'll be fine." I was like, and I have a podcast every day this week, which I never do.
Wow.
Most of the time, because I'm a co-host in some other podcasts, but most of the time I try to keep it to 3 a week. I do like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I keep it like middle of the week, because you always have to be on. You always have to be smiling. You always have to be engaging. You always have to bring something to the table. You can't just like turn on your fucking camera and some lights and be entertaining. It's just not how it works. And I couldn't agree more with you. I'd imagine it's even harder for you, because not only do you have to be on, but you have to build relationships with people who, let's be honest, I mean, maybe you don't want to necessarily build a relationship with them, but they're your fans, and that's who's paying you money, right? So like, there's going to be days where you don't feel like doing it, but it's your job. So I think one question I have personally is, how do you always just like I've seen your Instagram, you're always smiling, You're always bubbly.
Yeah.
How do you keep that persona alive and like, do you have a routine to kind of defrag yourself? Or, I'm a nerd, so my degree's in IT, but like, do you take a bubble bath? Like, what do you do to kind of like get, rinse yourself of some of that? The internet's a horrible place, and people are always fucking awful no matter what.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's a lot of what I focus on with my VIP group. Is I focus a lot on content creators keeping their energy high, because I know that part of what helped me be so successful at the beginning was because the content I was putting out there was high. I call it high vibe content, meaning if you're high vibe, you're going to be attractive to other people. You're going to get people that are like, oh, wow, like I really like what she's putting out there, because the energy you're putting out there is high vibe. If I'm, wearing myself thin, and if I'm not taking care of myself, then the content I put out there is going to be affected. So a huge part of what I try to tell or teach women in my VIP coaching group is how to fill their cup up, like how to take care of themselves energetically, how to make sure that their needs are being taken care of so that they're not wearing themselves thin, because that's going to affect their content really. So like I try to teach that, but then I also try to do it myself. Sometimes I'm not as good as I could be, but I think I even underestimate how much energy it takes. Like I have done in the past, like I'll do like 2 Instagram lives and then an OnlyFans live all in one day, and then like 2 coaching calls. And by the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Like that was like way too much energy going out when I have to be on that whole time. Like there was no downtime. So like if you think about a content creator, it's kind of like an athlete. Like an athlete cannot be doing those things that he does like in a football game all the time. He's got to be practicing. He's got to be taking care of his body. He's got to be, exercising, but he's not playing his best every day. And that's how we have to do it when we're creating content, is that there might be only 1 or 2 times during the week that we're actually creating content. And the rest of the week, we're preparing for those things mentally and physically, and doing other things that might fill our cup up.
It's important. And, I tell people, obviously with a interview style podcast that I have, right? I have to have I don't do this podcast by myself, right? I have to have someone else with me. And I've made it, and I won't fucking record then if this happens. So for me, I can't do 2 interviews in the same day. And it's because, and maybe you can equate this to like how you do yours. It's almost like I devote a lot, like I did a lot of research on you. Yeah. And I devote a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, my mindset, into you. Yeah. Because this podcast at the end of the day is about Nita Marie. If I were to interview someone after this, I feel like I wouldn't be on my A game, because I'm so tuned into what you do and the topics we're talking about. And until you really get into the content creation space, you don't really think about that shit. And I tried to do when I was, I'm over 2 years doing this. When I started in the beginning, I would sometimes try to double up, and like I just wouldn't be on my A game that second interview. I could feel it. I wouldn't be invested. Right.
And then like for me, who I know I have ADD, I'll start thinking about like all this other stuff. I know you said you have it too, I think. So I'll be oh, what's going on like tomorrow? Maybe I should check my phone. Like I just know my brain has hit its limit.
Yeah. It's a real thing, and like if you're a content creator listening to this, you do have to take breaks. I think some people don't realize, like, you do need to, like, I call it defragging. Like you just need to shut down, think about something else, because like I'm always on, so like I do all my own interviews, I come up with all my own questions, I do all my own marketing, I do all my own video editing and audio editing, I do all of that. So like I'm always doing something for the podcast, and like when you own it and you really love it, it's your baby. Yeah. So, but when it's your baby, it's the same thing if you actually have a baby, right? You're
Yeah.
you're putting all your fucking love and attention into that thing. You do get burnt out. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
it is important in my opinion to be able to just know your limits, and you learn it as you go through it. I'm sure there's been times where you kind of like hit that point, you're like, okay, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
Like, I know.
Well, I got pretty stressed out when I opened up my VIP coaching program because before I started my VIP coaching program, I was just focusing on content. So I was just a content creator. I was just focusing on my fans. I was just focusing on doing content for my fans. And then I opened up this coaching coaching program that nobody else is doing on OnlyFans. So, for example, there's nobody that does what I do, which I'll actually do like 12 one-on-one phone calls with a model for 3 months. And so she gets 12 hours of coaching with me. And I started that and I had so many people interested. I grew really fast and I was doing like 5 coaching calls a day and doing my content and being a mom and taking care of my animals.
God.
And I was like, I cannot do this. Like, I did it for a year, and then I'm like, this is not working out. And so I had to cut back on how many phone calls I'm going to do a day, just for my own mental health. So I definitely agree with that. Like, you have to know your limits, but sometimes you have to like get to that like max point before you know what your limit is.
Yeah, but we're all at the end of the day, and I'm not telling people like don't do certain things, right? We're all hustlers.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Hopefully at the end of the day, I don't make any fucking money off this podcast. It's more of a hobby. It's like, yeah, I could drink on a Tuesday,
Yeah.
But for me, it's I don't care if I ever make $1 from this because I just love talking to new people from all over the world and people with all different types of things and experience and shit they do. And for me, it's just kind of like fun. I've met some really cool people. I've made friends with people I've interviewed.
Awesome.
And like, so it's like, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like you have people fucking on your Instagram that show up randomly, right? They're people you met that you would have never met if you weren't doing what you're doing. And I think there's a cool aspect to what you do. And content creation, it's not just about how good you are, right? Because I'm sure there's OnlyFans models that are like the best in the world, but you have to network, you have to collaborate, you have to make friends with people, because at the end of the day, you never know when it's going to be your time or when people are going to really invest in your content. And you have to network. I think people think like other people that are doing what you do are like your competitors, and yes, in a way it is, but no, it's not. And your dog is so cute, by the way.
I know. This is Ringo. He's being funny because he wants to.
Are you a Beatles fan?
No. My kids named him. I didn't even know how they came up with Ringo, but he's my child.
Oh, is he golden retriever?
Yes.
Oh my God! Look at that dog. I love
know.
him. He's so
a baby.
cute.
Yes.
Oh.
So
what's your other buddy back there? We can't leave him out.
Well, I have like 4 dogs. So I have Ringo. I have Mochi. So Mochi's down here. Let me see. She's kind of fat. She's a corgi.
Oh, I love corgi butts.
That's Mochi. There's Mochi.
Oh,
yes.
Look how cute she
So
is.
we got her with Ringo. There are only dogs that are not like, the rescues, obviously, because they're purebreds. Then we have Tizzy and Molly. So
let's like lead this into a little bit about your animal sanctuary. I gotta know, what made you start it? What got you? I'm telling you, if we had a little bit of money, we would do the same fucking thing. If you ever need a manager, you let me know. I'll give you her information. She will never leave.
Yes.
She will never leave. We love dogs. Dogs are like, they're so innocent, and there's something special about. And look, you cat owners out there, I'm not the biggest cat fan. I love kittens, but dogs. There's something about being dog.
They are. They're so lovable, and all they want to do is like, obey you. Really, they just want to please you. And yeah,
I
mean,
think
I'll
there's a
tell
little
you.
something there for you there, Nita.
Oh yeah, all they want to do is please me, so I like that. But I do like cats too. Actually, I also like cats. I'm just like an animal person, but I'm
Yeah,
more of a dog person, I think. But yeah, so that's one of the things that we decided to do with the money that we made on OnlyFans is we purchased a piece of property in Colorado, and it's called Dog Heaven LLC.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, so we decided, you know what, if I'm going to make a lot of money, I want to help, you know, animals, and I want to help animals that would have been euthanized because there's such a huge problem in the U.S. with animals not being adopted, and so for multiple reasons are not adopted, and so we can't obviously save all of the animals, but we want to be able to take in some cats, dogs, and horses that would have been euthanized that are considered maybe unadoptable for whatever reason, that would have been maybe sent back to the rescue, or, maybe had behavioral issues, so they weren't going to be adopted, something like that.
There's poor babies.
I know,
Every
it is
every
sad.
dog's a puppy to me. Every dog.
I
Same
know.
thing with the wifey. Like we
Yeah,
see a dog, like look at that puppy. Like it's 15 years old. It's a puppy.
I
Okay,
know.
all
I know.
dogs are puppies.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me how many. I mean, the shelters are all full. It's like, and unfortunately, if a dog has any kind of behavioral issue, they're not going to be adopted. Like, we went up to a no-kill shelter that's up by where we are, and they had probably a good like 8 dogs that had to have the sign on their kennel that said, like, be careful, or don't touch, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Because it has a little bit of aggression. Now, I know that there's some dogs that are dangerous. I totally get that. But there's a large majority of dogs that are just showing aggression because they're scared. And because if you think about it, if they've been like in a different environment because they were left by their owner and they aren't comfortable where they are, they're going to show some type of aggression. So those dogs, unfortunately, could be deemed unadoptable because if someone's going to adopt a dog, they're most likely not going to adopt a dog that could possibly bite them.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? So those dogs are a lot of the type of dogs that we take in.
That's a shame. And I gotta.
Yeah.
So like our experience, we actually originally wanted to adopt. So we went to, I think it was like a Petco maybe.
Yeah.
And they had just gotten in some puppies from like North Carolina or something, and we fell in love with this. It was like a Yorkie Dachshund mix. It was the cutest fucking puppy ever. We fell in love with it. We were younger. We're like, let's do it, and so
Yeah.
we adopted her. They were doing her spay, right?
Uh-huh.
Because they said, obviously they have to spay and put in the microchip before she leaves. And they called us, said, hey, everything went through. She's good. 10 minutes later, they called to say, I'm so sorry, but she had a seizure and she died. I think she was
Oh no.
allergic to the anesthesia, maybe.
Oh no.
And it was like Thanksgiving. We were bawling our eyes out. We couldn't
Oh.
think of a dog for another year. And then she
Oh.
actually we have Brussels Griffins. So she found our
Oh.
dogs on Instagram. And I wanted to surprise her for Valentine's Day. So I actually found a breeder that just did Brussels Griffins that was about an hour from us. And that's where we got Morgan. And she was the runt of the litter.
Uh-huh.
And she's got enough attitude, but she's smart as fuck.
Uh-huh.
Has enough attitude for anyone on the planet. We
Yeah.
love her to death. But she's like my fiance's shadow. Like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
they're the same being at this point.
Yeah.
And then the second litter, which was the same parents, so their brother and sister 1 year apart, I wanted the biggest dog. So
Yeah.
we got her brother, Captain. So Captain Morgan, obviously, I love
Oh.
booze.
Cute.
He is, it's so funny. I tell this story all the time, but when we get to see them at like 4 or 5 weeks when they just open their eyes, and then
Uh-huh.
at the 8-week mark when we pick them up. And he was so funny. And when we first saw him, the wifey was like, "I like him, but he doesn't really give any kisses." And she wanted some kisses. And I swear to God, he must have heard her fucking say that.
Oh my gosh.
This man, he will literally lick your face. We call it we say that he rapes you.
Yeah,
It's like our
He
thing.
licks you down.
He he will fucking lick your face for days.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I think
Oh
if
my
we
gosh.
died in here, he would lick our face until our fucking skin falls off. But he's like, there's no aggression in him. He's never, like, outside of him beating, him and his sister fight all the time.
Yeah.
And he's 15 pounds bigger than her, and she'll beat the shit out of him.
Yeah. Oh my
She
God.
humps him to show dominance. Maybe if we did that in the real world a little bit more, be even more hilarious. But they're so much fun, and I love him to death. But he's like the sweetest fucking thing on the planet. Like, he has no
Aw.
aggression at all.
Yeah.
Even when you're yelling at him, he's dumb as shit. I love him to
Oh my
death.
gosh.
He's dumb as
Yeah.
shit. She's the smart one, and I think sometimes that's why she like has this like resting bitch face sometimes, because
Yeah.
she knows that there's like, she loves outside, she loves the sun, she's just like her mom.
Yeah.
Her mom doesn't have the resting bitch face thing, but they're just it's so funny how they are. And he's like obsessed with me, so he's probably laying down here with me, and Morgan's up there with her mom. But
Oh.
it's so weird. And like, if we could have I would have a million dogs. I don't care
Aw.
if they're dangerous,
Yeah.
or whatever. I think most of them get a bad rap, especially if you're talking about like pit bulls.
Yeah,
right?
pit bulls.
And
Yeah.
shit like that.
Well, and that's one of the dogs we have up there is a pit bull, and he did have a bite history because he was food aggressive and ended up biting like the mother-in-law. And she was like, "Okay, you've got to get rid of the dog. Like, if I'm going to live with you, you've got to get rid of the dog." So he has only bitten someone twice, but it wasn't even that bad, right? I don't think it's that bad because that's who I am. But it was. I know there
Yeah.
could be really bad dog bites. I know that, right? But this was just like a little nick on her hand, but she was scared. And so they called around to like every shelter, and nobody would take him because he's a pit bull and had a bite history, right? So literally, like, they called shelters throughout the United States, and nobody would take him. And this was when we were just starting to open the sanctuary, and so we're like, "We'll take him," or like, "We'll take him." So,
Yeah.
but I mean, he hasn't had any issues up there. I mean, he's now like probably the least aggressive dog we have up there. He
Wow.
is now like so sweet and so loved on, and hasn't had any like issues or incidences or anything. So I don't know. I just think a lot of it has to do with how they're trained and the environment they're in.
The environment plays such a big part, and I think that's like,
Yeah.
it's not just dogs, right? It's people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're innately born pure.
Yeah.
And I think your environment is what kind of shapes you. And I always say this,
Yeah.
my dad's going through a tough time, and I always tell people, him included, like, what makes us human is how you come out of the other side of
Yeah.
an issue, or
Yeah.
a downturn, or some fucked up shit. Everyone has fucked up shit happen to you. But it's who you are is what you come out after all of
Yes.
those things.
Yes.
And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with also animals.
Yeah.
I think not every animal is innately bad. I mean, they're just put into shitty situations. But if you could put them into a sanctuary where they can run around and they have love and kindness, I think that's it's kind of the same thing with people.
Yes,
certain degree.
it is. I totally agree. And I think that, if you look at like the people that are in jail and stuff like that, there's definitely some people that are mentally crazy. Like, I think that
Oh,
that's the difference between humans and animals is most animals don't have like these mental diseases that humans have, right? Like, humans have like bipolar, manic depression, split personalities, like just all these things that we can have because our brain is like so unique. But dogs usually it just, have their dog brain
Yeah.
They're not getting bipolar. They're not getting, they might have some anxiety, right? But they're not getting like split personalities. It's really just like you learn to train them and they're fine. But it's like humans, I think, are scarier than any animal would ever be. Because
Well, you
humans
never
are a
fucking
lot harder.
know. Yeah, you never know what's going on in look, I have bipolar in my family. Not
Yeah.
it's actually not really in my family. It's my family's married people who are bipolar. And I gotta say, man, bipolar is some crazy shit. Like
It is. I know. Yeah.
you can't control it. It's there. You can take as much fucking medicine as you want. But sometimes they just stop taking their meds because they think it's
because they
evil
think
or
they don't
whatever.
need it, or
Yeah.
they think that it's, affecting their personality, stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, so I mean, humans to me, like, are just way scarier and more unpredictable than any aggressive dog would ever be, in my mind.
I always tell people, and they laugh, but I'm like, when I watch a movie, I could see 100 people murdered.
Yeah.
The moment a dog is murdered, I'm out. Me and the wife are like, nah,
That's what my husband says.
nah, fuck this movie.
That's
We're
a
done.
terrible movie. I'm not watching that movie again.
We actually just watched a movie. If it's a Spanish dubbed movie. The wifey loves Anthony Jeselnik. He's a comedian. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's like big into like dead baby jokes.
Okay.
And it's called The Coffee Table, and it's a wild fucking movie because, and if you watch it, basically right at the beginning, this guy is buying a coffee table with like naked women.
Oh my gosh.
And his wife told him no, and they have a newborn baby. And then she leaves to go get them food, and like he falls, and the baby dies on the coffee table.
Oh my gosh.
And the head is chopped off. And it's the whole movie is him like pretending like the baby isn't dead when he knows the baby's dead. It's a fucking wild. We just watched it this weekend. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm totally fine with it. But if it was a puppy, I would have turned it off instantly. I would have been done. And I'm like, it's so fucked up.
It is so messed up, but a lot of people are like that. I saw a meme on Facebook one time of a guy holding up a sign saying, "I'm not watching the movie if the dog dies." So it's true.
Oh my god. So let's end on this. All right, we'll end on a fun note instead of me talking about dead babies. Let's give some men and women that listening to this show. Give me some fun facts about orgasms. You got anything right on the top of your head? I saw your website, and I know you have some fun ones.
Oh yeah. Well, I do have some fun facts for women about orgasms. So it does actually make you smarter because when you have an orgasm, it increases blood flow to your brain. And so it does actually make you smarter when you have more orgasms. It
All
also,
right, I like it.
Yeah, it also reduces your chance of cancer because every time you have an orgasm and you have the increase of blood flow, it helps to get rid of toxins and also get rid of, anything that could possibly cause cancer. But then that's also why it helps to reduce age because of the blood flow going through your skin. So one of the big things with orgasms is increasing the blood flow through your skin, and then that increases collagen. So those are the top 3 right now I can think of.
Look at, I can't wait to post this on fucking YouTube. You just have dogs everywhere. They're just all like, all right, Mom, you said 1 hour. It's an hour and 2 minutes. Let's go. We're done with this. No, look,
they're done with me not paying attention to them.
it was a pleasure having you on. Can you please tell everybody, where can they find your content, your website, and anything you want to leave us with before we stop?
Yes. So you can go to my website at www.nita-marie.com, or you can go to my Instagram, love_Nita Marie, and it's NITA.
Yeah, your Instagram's cool, man. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's like every time I turn it on. Yeah, every time I turn it on, I'm like, all right, I should probably not watch this at work. I should probably put this in.
Yeah.
No, it's fun. So my podcast, it's Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials. And you can find me anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's just Drink O'Clock. And my website is drinkoclock.beer. This episode will probably be up in a couple days, probably Thursday-ish,
Awesome.
something like that.
Yay.
But look, it was a pleasure having you on.
You
Keep doing what
too.
you're doing. I
Thank
love
you.
that you are empowering women, and I think we need more of it.
Thank you. I'm excited to do more of it. So I appreciate you having me on. I've loved getting to know you.
Awesome. Same here. Well, you have a great evening, a great Memorial
Thank
Day,
you.
and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink Club Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise the bar.